What's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here from the Nebula Music Podcast, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Tosh Peterson, also known as Tosh the Drummer. I guarantee that you've seen some of his videos on Instagram. He's a very flashy and very lively drummer who's always posting cool videos of himself playing some really complicated grooves. Now, not only is he super young, he's also playing for Nick West. Nick West played bass for Prince, so really wrap your head around that. This guy is 16 years old and already playing for someone who's really talented and really well-versed in the music industry. So I had to sit down with Tosh and figure out his process and approach to his music career. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me here. I am very excited to have Tosh Peterson here joining me on this episode. Tosh, how are you?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm beyond excited to have you. If you guys have never heard of Tosh Peterson, you probably have heard of his Instagram before. It's Tosh the Drummer, right?
Yep, Tosh the Drummer.
Anytime I sign into Instagram and I go to my search bar and I'm trying to find drum stuff, your videos always come up. Primarily because you're always so energetic. You're wearing either a hat or a beanie. And most of the time you're shirtless. You're just jamming out like crazy. I mean, it's just, I imagine it's because you're super hot whenever you're playing in that room.
Yeah.
But honestly, look, I can talk for hours about, the drumming and the stuff that you do, but I'm going to let you do that. So why don't you go ahead and let the listeners know who you are, what you do, and like where you're from, and just stuff like catch us up about you.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm like you said, I'm Tosh Peterson, Tosh _ the drummer, whatever you want to call me. But yeah, man, I started posting videos when I was younger, like 11 years old. I'm 16 now. I currently play drums for Nick West, who is
Nice.
the bassist for Prince.
Nice.
And, yeah, man, I've just been doing me for a while, and I'm born and raised in Southern California, so it definitely makes it easier to do what I do, is to be so close to LA, so.
Where in California are you from?
I'm from Fullerton.
Fullerton, California. Nice.
Yeah, Orange County, so yeah.
Orange County. So for those of you guys who've never visited California, California is surprisingly large. Okay, a lot of people never realize how big, California is. Most people think of LA and they think of San Francisco when they're not from the US or whatever, right? But that's all they think about. But they don't realize that in between those two cities and even past that, there's just miles and miles of just stuff.
Yeah.
Orange County is an area that's right next to LA. It's not technically LA, or maybe it is, but it's really big right next to, and there's a whole bunch of other cities right there. So OC, great place to be, very close to LA. So you've been playing since you were 11 years old. What made you want to start playing? Or I'm sorry, you've been posting since you were 11, right?
Yeah, I started posting videos when I was 11 years old. And I started posting videos for kind of a funny reason. I started posting because I wanted Thomas Pridgen to see me play drums.
Nice.
And because of that, I got him to kind of notice me play, I guess. And yeah, man, I started taking lessons with him when I was 11 years old, and like pretty soon after I started posting and stuff. So yeah. Thomas
Pridgen, are you serious? That's crazy. I've seen pictures of you with him. I never realized that's exactly why you wanted to start posting, is to get his attention. That's crazy.
Yeah, because he had followed me on Instagram, and then I saw that he was playing right by my house, and I was like, man, this guy I'm like a huge fan of his drumming, and he started following me on Instagram, and he's playing right by me, and I was like, I gotta get some videos up so he can see me play before I meet him. And so I started posting and stuff. I did like 3 videos, and then I went and I met him, and he was just like super cool, and then I started taking lessons with him. He invited me to a clinic that he was doing, and then he let me play in front of everyone at the clinic, which was super dope. And,
what? Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was such an awesome experience. So that's really like the reason why I got into posting videos. It was just that alone, just that one reason.
Just to get Thomas Pridgen's attention. That's insane. You guys, if you guys don't know who Thomas Pridgen is, Thomas is a very well-known, influential drummer. I think his claim to fame, or at least one of his earlier claim to fame, was that he played for the Mars Volta at some point. Yeah. And he since then has done a lot of crazy stuff. He still plays with a lot of really big artists, but he's just known for being just this fast, incredibly amazing drummer. If you ever watch him, he's just like everywhere. And he's got the biggest hi-hats I've ever seen. Right?
Yeah, he was playing 19s when I first met him, and I in those first couple of videos I'm playing 20-inch hi-hats because I wanted to get his attention like that as well.
That's crazy. What's the difference, if I can ask, between playing, let's see, what's the normal hi-hat size? Like what, 14 to 15 inches? And then 20? Because I've never played with anything bigger than 15.
Yeah, so it's for me, in my opinion, it's a lot less versatile or whatever, you know. It's really just one dimensional. It's really loud. It's really, you know, crazy and stuff, which is it's killer, and what Thomas makes it work. For if you notice all of my first videos, I kind of was just bashing on them, you know.
Yeah.
And they're really good for that and stuff. But now I'm a 15. I love 15s, but I pretty much always backline on tour, so I have to play 14s.
Right.
But yeah, if I had it my way, I would be playing 15s, maybe 16s sometimes. But yeah, for the most part.
What makes them less versatile? Is it just because they have a deeper sound because they're bigger?
Yeah, and they're really they're killer for rock, but you couldn't take them to a jazz gig. You probably couldn't take them to a hip hop or anything else like that. Like, you know, they're very just rock and roll and like loud, and you know, which is cool for a certain thing.
Right.
But you know, it's not for everything.
Right. Absolutely. And as a drummer, and, you know, with all the cymbals that we have, it's important to be versatile and just be able to fit in well with the music. So I think that's a good choice on your end. Well, let me ask you this. One of the things I was very interested in when we got connected was you're playing for Nick West, correct? I think you said that. Yeah. Okay. So Nick West was Prince's bassist for a while.
Yeah.
And now she's doing her own solo work, and she has you as her drummer now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's insane. I have to ask, and maybe just broad, but walk me through how that happened. I mean, obviously, I imagine there was some sort of audition, or maybe you're just so badass that she was like, just play for me right off the bat. So just tell me a little bit. How did that happen?
So basically, I met her, like, I don't know if this ties into anything on how I got the gig or not, but like 2 years ago at the NAMM convention, which is also right by my house since we were talking about location and stuff.
You're lucky, because I got to drive for an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah, I get dropped off by my mom, so.
Nice.
Anyway, I met her there like 2 years ago, and I was just a big fan of her music and stuff, so I took a picture with her and stuff. And then I posted the picture, and she followed me on Instagram, so I think that's kind of how we first like got in contact, but we never really talked or anything. We just had followed each other and stuff like that. And I was just super stoked on that. And then, like, fast forward to this year, I did a drum cover of one of her songs. Like, and I don't normally do drum covers, only if I, like, really, really like a song. Like, I have to really love a song to do a cover of it.
Nice.
Just because I'm not very good at editing or anything like that. I just, honestly, if you watch my Instagram videos, I made that in, like, 3 minutes and then posted it in another, like, 5 minutes. So I was like, I'm gonna put work. I just wanna do this just because I really want to play it, and I like how I just like the song. And then 2 weeks after I posted that, her sister contacted me and said that she was looking for a drummer.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, really? Like, well, first she was sending me videos and like, could you send me a video of this? Like, could you send me a video of you playing to this? So then I got really into editing, and then eventually I just started playing it through the PA system, so it was really bad quality and stuff, but I just, you know, I had to get it to her some way.
Right.
And so I started sending her stuff and all this, like, she kept telling me to learn more stuff, and then she told me that Nick was looking for a drummer, and that's when I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense now, like, why she was going to do this. And, so yeah, then she was. I didn't really hear much like right after, but like I kept in contact with her, and then like a week and a half later, her music director emailed me saying, so he was like, so I heard you're interested in auditioning. We'd love to have you by. Our auditions are on April 6th, which is my birthday.
Oh wow!
So I was like super excited. It was like my 16th birthday. I'm like, I get to play with Nick West, even if I don't get this, I don't care. I just like really want to play with Nick West, so I'm super excited to get to play with her. So I learned like a bunch of songs that her sister told me to learn, and they were super hard. It was like 777, 9311 by Morris Day and the Time. And then I found out that I didn't have to play those.
Nice.
So So her music director sent me some songs that I already knew because I was a Nick West fan and stuff. So I just showed up. I played those 3 songs. It was, it went really well, but I just didn't think I got it. I just, I don't really know why. I just honestly didn't think I got it.
Was it just because was there like a feeling in the room, or what made you specifically feel that way?
It was just something that I was like, personally, I felt like it went really well to them, but to me, I was like, oh, I could have done way better.
Yeah.
Like, it just was not my best performance, and I was like, oh, well, I didn't really think anything of it. I was super stoked that I got to play with her, and I didn't hear from them for another, 3.5 weeks, so
Whoa.
I just assumed that I hadn't gotten it, because she had a gig, 2 or 3 weeks after that, so I was like, oh, they must have found someone else. I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, well, I'm just going to keep working. I would love to get on a tour this year or do some out-of-town gigs. I really didn't have anything major lined up. And then I got a call, like I said, 3.5 weeks later, and it was her music director, and he was, telling me that they loved my audition and they would love to have me a part of the band if I was still open. And he gave me all the dates and stuff, and I was like, hell yeah, that's me. I'm in there. Yeah, so... yeah, and 3 weeks later, we played a gig, and it was killer.
Nice.
And
what was that first gig? What did you guys play for the first time?
Our first gig was the Malibu Guitar Festival in Malibu.
Nice.
Which was with Steve Vai and Zepparella and a couple other people that were pretty dope. So it was a really cool first show. But it was also a really, nice first show, in my opinion, because it was, a 30-minute set.
Nice.
So it was pretty short and just a good intro. But then not even a week later, 5 days later, we were in Detroit opening up for Parliament Funkadelic. So
whoa,
yeah, so it was a pretty quick transition from playing a tiny little, a tiny little place. I don't even know, it was in Malibu, but it was a tiny little place playing 30 minutes to playing a full set opening for Parliament Funkadelic at this big theater in Detroit, which is pretty dope. So.
Dude, okay, so there's so many questions I have, but I want to get in. I want to understand how you were able to manage this, because let's get this straight. You're 16, right? So I'm assuming you're still in high school, or maybe recently just graduated, right?
Yeah, I'm actually homeschooled.
Oh, you're homeschooled. Oh, wow. That's
homeschooled.
That's kind of cool. How is that, by the way, to get homeschooled? I've never been homeschooled before. I think I've met a couple people that are, but how do you like it?
I love it. Honestly, it's I wasn't homeschooled my whole life. I was homeschooled when I was younger because my dad was touring. He's a drummer as well. And then...
who does he play for, if I can ask?
Yeah, he played drums for a guy named Dave Wakeling from a band called the English Beat. So he was playing for the English Beat and the general public and stuff like that. So he was doing that stuff in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff like that. But he doesn't play anymore for anyone professionally. But he did that when I was younger. So that's originally why I was homeschooled, and my older brother. It started off with him. So yeah, since then I was homeschooled until high school, and then my freshman year, I went to a high school, and then a couple days into my sophomore year, I just had a lot of gigs, and I was playing a lot, getting home super late, and having to get up super early, which kind of sucked. And yeah, and I just was like, think I could try going homeschooled again. I honestly thought my mom was going to say no, but she was like, yeah, if that's really what you want. I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
Let me ask you this. How different is it from being in high school and being in homeschool? Obviously, I think the big difference is you're at home and the other ones you're in school. But I imagine the difference is with high school, or just being in school in general, you're with a lot of people. And homeschool, you're just, by yourself and with your family. Is that something that you like? Do you personally like just being home? Is it the time that you get, the extra time that you prefer? Or just walk me through a little bit what the difference is like.
Yeah, it's really the extra time that I prefer. That's what I prefer about being homeschooled. It's, the learning experience is pretty, similar. The really, the only things that I don't have to deal with is, the work that isn't as necessary,
Right.
Where you're sitting in a classroom waiting for something, or all this time that you could just have gotten it done way faster, if
Yeah.
And that's really the main thing. A lot of my friends do music related stuff. In high school, a lot of my friends were sports guys, so they didn't really understand the whole music thing. But it was cool. I mean, we hung out and stuff, but I always just wanted to play drums and stuff. So really, a lot of my friends have to do with music now, and so either we'll play gigs together locally, or will come see me play when I'm playing locally, and so it's really like the people thing isn't as big of a difference just because I'm always out doing stuff with music.
Yeah.
But the big difference is just not having to sit in a classroom for hours a day, you know?
It makes me wish that I could go back in time and switch my high school time to go and become homeschooled, because it just seems like it was more beneficial for someone who was in music like yourself. Being involved in music, that time, it was very scarce, you know, going to school all the time and having to be there for a couple of hours and then having to do after school stuff and then having to allocate time for homework and then maybe get time to play drums. Like it's hard. It's not easy, but I think you prioritized well. You wanted to do that. And I think that's the cool thing. And beyond that, I think you definitely are right, where your new group of friends basically reflect what you're doing. You know, you're a musician now, you're playing full time, you're touring, and all your other friends are basically doing the same. Essentially makes the experience at par, if not better.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Dude, that's cool. I'm happy that you made that choice, because obviously we wouldn't be able to have Tosh the Drummer on this podcast if you weren't having that schedule. So for Nick West, for the audition, right? So you showed up. And I'm just curious a little bit more specifically how the audition process happened. So you showed up, you sat down on the drums, and did Nick specifically tell you what she wanted you to play, or was it mostly communication with the director, with the music director?
So basically, I showed up, and just a little bit, this isn't really in the question as much, but I got a rehearsal space at the rehearsal studio, because I knew the place I was auditioning, Amp Rehearsal, in North Hollywood. Yeah. I knew that place pretty well because that's where I used to take lessons with Thomas. So I got a rehearsal room for like 2 hours before so I could warm up and stuff. Just because I really wanted to play drums and I knew I was going to be out all day after that. So I showed up, I warmed up, and then I went in like 5 minutes before my audition time. I walked out. They still weren't there yet, so I just waited outside the studio until I saw our music director, Hubie. And then, so I went in there, I sat down. Nick wasn't in there yet, and so we were just kind of talking. He was asking me about what I do and what I did aside from that, what I do like on my own. If I hadn't gotten that gig, what would I still be doing and stuff like that, and what other gigs I do and stuff like that. So so we were just kind of talking for about maybe 5 minutes, and then Nick walked in, and she started to set up her bass and stuff, and I was still talking to him, and then he introduced us, and then she basically just sat down, and she's like, asked him what he told me to learn, and then he said the 3 songs, and then she was like, okay, let's do this one first, and I actually had been practicing them in the same order that she asked me to play them in, nice. And it wasn't no specific reason, just happened to work out like that, just because that's how the playlist showed up on my phone when I had all the
how lucky
yeah. I know. So I was playing it in the exact same order that I had been practicing it in for the past week and a half. So yeah, it was really cool, and we played the first song, then we played the second song, and she was like, oh wait, you gotta do this one thing. She kept like telling me what she would want me to do differently. And
what was she saying?
Yeah. So basically, in the song "Let's Work" by Prince, there's this extra flam snare hit that's like deku, you know, and I was just playing the groove to chat to chat to chat to, but every 4 bars there's a teku at the end of it. So, and I hadn't noticed that in the song, and she was trying to get me to do that. She was trying to explain it, and I didn't really understand what she was saying. Yeah. But I did what I could, and now I play it like the record, but then what I thought she was saying wasn't even close. I was doing more like a roll thing. I don't really know, but I just tried it, and then she was like, all right, let's just go to the next song. And I was like, okay, cool. So there I was like, oh, that was kind of a bummer. But I didn't really all right, let's do this. And then we played the next song, and it just really locked in and felt super solid. And I was like, oh, that was pretty dope, you know, and actually, another funny thing that happened that I haven't told most people, but some dude walked up while we were in the room so when she was walking in, and he was like, hey, you look familiar. And she was like, oh, I doubt it. And then he was like, do you play bass? And she was like, a little bit, but I'm not very good. And then he was like, what's your name? And she was like, Nikki. And he was like, where are you from? And she was like, I'm from Arizona. And he's like, oh, I don't think Nick West is from Arizona. And then he like walked away. And then he came back and he's like, so what are you guys doing? And she's like, we're rehearsing. And I was like, oh, actually, she's auditioning because I'm the music director for this band. So it was just kind of funny. It just kind of like clicked, and that was pretty cool. We just felt like really cool and stuff.
That's cool, man. That's pretty funny.
I could just tell we're getting along already, which is really cool. And they're just really easy people to get along with, which is great, you know, especially if we're on the road as much as we are. To be able to get along with people is important, I think. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your personality plays just as much with getting the gig as your talent. And actually, that was one of my curiosities is whenever I've auditioned in the past for the different tours that I've been on and gigs, I feel like almost every single time I felt like I didn't do the best I could. I feel like that's just part of being a drummer. You're just like, damn it, I didn't play that, you know, last 30-second note and landed on the E. You know, it's just, I wish I could have done that, but whatever. But in reality, we probably did really well, you know?
Yeah.
So what do you think was the major factors that played into you getting that gig? Because obviously you're good. And then you obviously,
thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're phenomenal. And it seems like you clicked really well with Nick. So do you think it was just those two put together, or do you feel like there's other factors too that helped in you getting the gig?
You know, one thing that she made very clear is she didn't want someone who was just in a backing band. She didn't want it to just be a backing band. She wants it to be like a band almost, you know?
Right.
And even though it's just, she's the artist and we're playing for her, it's not just like any other gig where you show up and wear all black and
just play the song.
And just play the song and then get out of there. Like when you're playing, like she wants you just out of, like even our stage plot, like I'm at the front of the stage on the front stage right. And then like, so it's like kind of, we're set up like a trio. And then there's like risers in the back for the backup singers and keys and stuff like that. We're all kind of in a line almost. And so it's like we're all equal parts on stage. And she really wanted it to make sure she didn't want a drummer who was just sitting in the back and doing the thing, you know?
Yeah.
She wanted someone who was out there. And I didn't really know that when I was going in. I just played how I always play. But which I think is very important because that's how the right gig comes. If you're trying to be someone else, you might not be getting the right gig if they like how you are acting as someone else. So I think it's very important to just be who you are and stuff and let that come out. But yeah, and that was another thing. She was like, I like you know, the bright colors and stuff like that. She like all that stuff because she loved, like, that's another thing. It says at the bottom of every single email when we're getting her ready for a trip, it says like, wear bright colors. Just like that's at the bottom of every email that's sent to us. So it's just something that is like very important to her, and just have your own style. And I think she liked my style or something with like the whole shirtless thing. And we're working on some dope ideas with the shirtless thing. So that's kind of cool. Like, I don't know what I can talk about or not yet, but yeah, we got some dope ideas coming out. So that'll be pretty cool.
I'm going to have to ask you about that because I'm very curious what you guys are thinking of doing with that. Actually, since we're talking about the attire a little bit, two things you said that I really liked. Number one, you said be yourself, which I think it's something you hear a lot, you know, especially from motivational speakers. And it's something I say a lot too. But I'm a firm believer that the cheesy stuff, it's cheesy because it's true. You know, I think it just constantly people that experience it and practice it, they experience the success because it's true. And so with you, you know, I'm pretty sure in all your videos, since you even started, I think, you've always had this very kind of bright attire. The shirtless thing was something you did from the very beginning, basically. And sometimes you wear a hat or headband or beanie, but that's like your style. Whenever someone sees a picture of shirtless dude with like bright pants and beanie, it's you. It's Tosh. And that's like your brand in a way. So I'm curious where that came to be. Like, have you always just liked bright colors, or is that something you chose? Or how did you come up with that like fashion choice of yours?
So, you know, it's not really something I thought. I mean, I've always been into bright stuff and like crazy weird stuff and when I'm playing and stuff, but you know, like the shirtless thing just came from, I was playing in my living room and I had to shut all the doors and I didn't have air conditioning because I didn't want to annoy the neighbors, so I had to shut all the doors and it was really hot and stuff, so like I was just always shirtless. And you know, but like the bright color thing, I found a bunch of old bandanas that used to be my great grandpa's in my closet. and I found those and I started wearing them, and I don't know, I just kind of did it for fun, and then I was like, oh, I kind of like how this looks and stuff, and I just kept doing it, and I would also do it to keep the hair out of my face because I had really long hair at the time.
You did, that's right.
Yeah, if you look at some of my really old videos, I had like hair past my shoulders, really long, just straight hair. And
yeah, you had that flowy blonde surfer hair, like that really long one.
Yeah. And so I always wore the bandana to kind of keep it out of my face, as well as I liked the way it looked. And it was just kind of like, it was whatever, and I didn't really plan it as much. But, I've always loved bright colors and just like kind of, I don't know, just being out there. I'm like really, I don't know how to put it other than I'm an attention whore sometimes. But yeah, and so I just kind of, that just kind of came from that, just me liking bright colors. And I like the way they look as well. Like if you look at everything, like my drum set, for example, like a couple of my drum sets, they're all like bright colors. Like Thump Drums I have a fiberglass Thump drum kit. And it's like, I just told him, like, make it crazy and bright. Like, that's all I told him. And it wasn't for any reason other than I really like bright colors. And then, like, I have a Love custom drum set that is bright orange and stuff. I just like bright colors just because I like the way they look,
Nice. And you don't even have to have a deeper meaning as to why. It's just, you're like, hey, I just like the way it looks and I'm going to go with it. And it's part of who you are. I think those are the most genuine moments. I mean, not to get all super philosophical here, but I honestly believe that in our lives, we definitely encounter moments like that where it's just like, I don't know, I just picked this thing up and it just felt good in my hand. And I keep doing it because it just feels good, I think sometimes there's a challenge for musicians to try and learn a lot or try and learn everything that they can. And at some point, some musicians face a challenge where they don't know specifically who they are musically, because they're trying to be so many things. Even going back to the Thomas Pridgen stuff, you clearly were inspired by Thomas Pridgen and you wanted to learn what he was doing so you could apply it to your own drumming. And I think that, in a sense, evolved into your type of drumming, because Thomas Pridgen drumming is complicated stuff, guys. Like, if you've never seen him drum, just do yourself a favor. It's insane. Like, just type in on YouTube, Thomas Pridgen, just watch it for 30 seconds. That's enough for you to realize how complicated his drumming is. And let me ask, how long were you taking lessons with Thomas Pridgen? And how long did it take for you to actually be able to apply, a lot of his concepts into your own drumming? Because it's hard stuff. So I'm curious how long it took you.
So it was kind of, those are two really good questions. And I started taking lessons with Thomas when I was 11 years old, and I still try to take lessons with him, actually. So I haven't had a lesson since January of this year.
Damn, long time, man.
But yeah. But both our schedules are kind of busy now since I've been playing for Nick, and whenever he's in LA, I'm out of LA. Whenever I'm in LA, he's out of LA. So It's just, it hasn't worked out since then, but definitely I still would love to, and if it ever works out, I'll be taking lessons with him again, just because he's a great person, and even just playing with him is just like, even if we're just shedding together, whether it's at NAMM or wherever, if we're just playing, you can learn so much just by being with him, Yeah. And the other question was, what was the other question? Sorry.
How long did it take, or how long did it take from you taking lessons with Thomas Pridgen for you to be able to apply some of his concepts to your drumming, comfortably?
Okay, so that pretty much is that's kind of weird for me, because it was one of those things that he started showing me exercises, and I would just like work on those until I was doing them and coming up with other stuff that I would come back and show to him and just try to like impress him,
Yeah.
And so I was like, so I just would work on those exercises like crazy, but I didn't notice me using necessarily those exact exercises in my playing. It more just became like, I noticed that I was getting better as a drummer,
Right.
Where it was just, I could play other things that didn't even have to do with that exercise, but all of a sudden I could play something that I like have thought about like even a couple months before that, and just been like, man, one day I'm going to be able to do that or something, just any type of lick or something that you hear me play, or like, it's just stuff like stuff started to just click. And like, really what I play now, I don't think a whole lot about. If you like watch any of my videos, like I said, I don't put a whole lot of thought into them. I just kind of go and I just play what comes out. And so that's why when a lot of people ask for sticking, like under my videos, it's kind of hard for me to answer that, because
I know that feeling.
Yeah, because I'm like, Oh man, I was just playing, I was just playing what came out, and it just came out, and I liked how it sounded, so I posted it. And really, that's how all my entire life is. Even when I'm on stage, like I learn these songs, but when I do a drum solo or when I do a fill, it's never planned out. It just kind of comes out. And anything like that, my whole life has just been kind of like that. I just play what I feel and I play what comes out. And, so it really just stuff started coming out of me that I was like, whoa, I just impressed myself. Like, that's really cool. I didn't know I could do that and stuff like that. And it's really, that's kind of, if there wasn't really one time or like, so I don't really know how quick it was or how long it was, but pretty soon after I would start to get his exercises, I would like even just be playing a gig or playing with someone, because I've been playing I've been playing with people since I was really young. Yeah. Like whether it's just playing in church or playing at musicals and stuff like that. Like I would do musical theater gigs in the orchestra, and so yeah, I was doing that like forever, and it was just kind of like stuff would start coming out.
How different is it doing a musical theater gig compared to, being on stage for a full-blown rock concert? Because I've done a couple orchestra pits myself, and I know with that kind of stuff, it's very meticulously timed, because you're basically doing a play, and there's usually a conductor or maybe not, depending on the size of it. Yeah. So I'm curious what you think. What's the difference for you between doing something musical related, like a musical theater thing, and then like a full-blown rock concert? So
with musicals, I feel very much like what Nick would not want me to do, like we're supposed to be hidden, we're supposed to wear all black, and I was totally cool with that. Like that was like something I was totally fine with. Like I kind of liked honestly getting at intermission or whatever and going out and having people not realize that I was the drummer, Yeah. I was totally okay with that. Like it wasn't a big deal, but it was totally like the opposite. It was like 100% opposite. I was playing completely exactly the same, which you have to do on a lot of gigs. You play the same every night, but with the gig I'm on now with Nick, I'm like, it's always different. Something's always changing. We never play the same set list 2 nights in a row. Like it's always changing. It's always just, it's just it comes out how it comes out, kind of like how I just play.
Yeah, and when you guys are on stage, actually, and I'm curious about this because, like you said, with Nick, it's never the same thing. But I've definitely played with a couple artists that are meticulously planning almost every single move. And every artist is different, right? Every genre calls for something different. So I'm curious with Nick, has there ever been a moment when you're performing with her where maybe last minute, like as you're going on stage, she maybe the musical director tells you like, hey, by the way, this song, we're going to slow it down, or, we're going to cut the bridge, or we're just going to, whatever. And something that might have been like a curveball, but you just owned it. Was there a moment like that at all?
There's a couple moments like that where it wasn't necessarily even as much time as when we're getting on stage, as much as we were already on stage in the middle of a show. There's a couple times. One time we were in Canada. It was Victoria, Canada, and I hadn't gone over the outro with them because we hadn't needed to do it. Right. And but they forgot. It was all the same band as before, of course, but not, because the first couple shows I did with them, we had Xavier on keys, who's the keyboardist for Ghost Note. I don't know if you know who Ghost Note is, but with a lot of the dudes from Snarky Puppy, yeah, Sput, and all those dudes, and so he was playing with them. So we were both kind of. Yeah, we were both kind of like learning. He also played for Prince and stuff, but we were both kind of learning the music as we were going. So there weren't really any curveballs at those shows, as much as just like she'd be like, "All right, drum solo," and she would just look at me and be like, "Go," But in Canada, it was the keyboardist Cliff that's normally there, and so they started playing the outro, and I didn't know what was happening, and they were like, oh, sorry, and they just like were like, play. So I just started playing with them, and then that was the only big like crash. Like we made it through, but it was very rough. Like we because there's the hits, and it was Jungle Boogie, the da 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 da, that thing, and so they went into that, and I didn't know that that's what it was. So they started playing this thing. So I'm just like playing the straight pocket groove through it, and then they end, and there's like this 2-measure drum solo that I didn't know about, And so like it just goes, and I played pocket through the solo, and then we just ended like this big hit. And it was like, it was whatever. It sounded dope, and everyone was digging it, but it was definitely like we barely made it through that.
It sounded like you just owned it. I've spoken with a couple other touring musicians too, and this is something that happens quite a bit actually, where just something doesn't happen as planned. No matter how much you rehearse something, no matter how many hours you spend, learning the set, something's always bound to change, right? And it's those moments that really kind of test your character, in my opinion, as a musician. You can either crash under pressure, and just like tell yourself, how freaked out you are, or you can just kind of buckle down and be like, well, here we go. And you just do your thing. And it sounds to me like in your experience, you played the pocket and it just somehow meshed well with it. Pocket can be a really good solo too, especially like if you think about like James Brown. James Brown used to love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whenever, if you listen to the Funky Drummer or even other songs where, the drums are just going, and then he's just like, let the drums take it. But you know what? Don't change what you're doing. Just keep doing the same thing because that's where it's at. You did the same thing too, and you just owned it and you just ended it. But I think when something like that happens under pressure, you just keep doing it. And
yeah, oh yeah,
especially if it wasn't your fault, you were just like, well, here we go. And you did it, you kept the pocket, and then you ended it on when you were supposed to, and it was great. And I think that's just something that's, you learn as you go, as a musician, that you just got to own it and then just hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what happened. And, and it ended up being awesome. It wasn't a big deal or anything. It just went through, and it happened, and it happened like it happened, and it was great,
Yeah.
The next night we killed it, and we killed that outro. Like, that was in Vancouver the next night, and that outro was like my favorite part of the set, because once I learned it, I was like, this is really sick.
Dude, I have to admit, I really like your approach to music. I'm a huge advocate that every artist is different, and they should own up to, whoever they are. And I really specifically like your approach to music, because I think sometimes, as talented musicians as we are, and not even necessarily musicians, it could be anything. It could be a painter or a writer, an actor, whatever. When you're learning how to become better, that you learn exercises and you learn theories and you learn just stuff that helps you become better. But it's so easy to fall into that trap, to just constantly focus on the technique of it, which is fine too. There's tons of musicians out there that excel being, monsters at technique. But then again, I think at the end of the day, it's about the art, right? It's about the music. It's about the painting or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes there just isn't an explanation to what feels good. It just kind of does, right? And that's what I like about your drumming is you're like, I don't know, like I'm sure I played some eighth notes in there, in this really cool fill that I did, but I just did what felt right. And so I'm curious where that came from. I think you've always had that, but I'm wondering if maybe you feel like you got that from maybe your parents or from a friend, where you adopted this personality where you just accepted what felt right. And the reason why I ask is because it really isn't that easy for a lot of people. It's something I'm starting to realize, that as an artist, there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves to be better, to be like perfect or whatever. But I feel like at some point we reach this point of acceptance where we're like, you know what? I like doing this just because, and it sounds good, and it's me. And it sounds simple, but I'm curious of where you got that from. Like, have you always thought that way?
So it was just kind of like, I don't know, like, with the whole like feeling right and stuff like that, like making it feel right, it's always just kind of like, that was something my dad always encouraged, especially like about drumming itself, just playing drums, is like, if you don't know a song or something, oh well, like you could sit in with anyone. Like I was sitting with like a good friend of ours, Gerald Harris, from a band called Slapback. He was like, let me sit in whenever we would go see him play. And he would be like, what do you know? And I would be like, I don't know, just play something. Because I didn't know what they would knew and stuff. And so they would just play, and I would just jump in. And it was always just something that was like, it doesn't matter, just play what feels right, And so that was always kind of one of those things that was like, just kind of go with the flow and make it feel right. And another thing, it's just like, you can't really worry about everything. Like, so you can't be so strict about everything.
Right.
You got to just let it come out, because really what's just coming out is what's really you.
Exactly.
And so that's another thing. It's like when I going back to me just being like, just be you, because that's what people are going to like. Is because if someone doesn't like that, that means like it wouldn't even be fun to play with them, because you can't be you. You have to be someone else. And, you know, which sometimes there are gigs where you have to imitate someone else, but it's also, you got to do it in your own way, being you.
Right.
Because you can't act like someone else your entire life. And really, like, that's a big thing that I just kind of always grew up knowing. It wasn't something that I really remember, like, being told one time. It was just something I always grew up knowing, like, because my parents and stuff like that. I just kind of knew it, you know?
And I'm glad that you knew it, because I think it reflects on your playing, and it basically reflects on everything that you do. And on your Instagram account, I want to ask just a couple questions about it, just because it does reflect your playing a lot. I think we both can agree that social media basically helped you get to where you are at some degree, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so I'm curious, when you basically want to film a video, okay, do you plan it out ahead of time? Like, do you have like a week planned out, or is it you just kind of wake up, do your stuff, and then you're like, I want to film a video today? Is that kind of how you approach it, or how else do you approach it?
So I have like two different approaches. There's one approach is I'm playing, like, 'cause I never plan out when I'm going to post a video. Because you'll notice there's sometimes I'll post 2 videos in a day, and then there's sometimes I won't post a video for like a week. And so I never really know when I'm going to post. But I always start out my day the same. When I'm at home, I warm up. And even when I'm on the road, as soon as I get to a hotel room, whether we fly in the morning or if we're whatever, I try to warm up on my lap. But when I'm at home, I warm up on my drum set. And so I do the same warm up pretty much every day, just going around the kit and doing my thing. And then I just start playing to a click. And then I'll play to a click and try to experiment and come up with something and just see where what I do goes. Every day I come up with something new, which I think is really important. Like, I try to, whether it's an exercise or just a cool sounding groove or a lick, that, I just always try to come up with something new. And like, I think a lot. Like, I'll be like, if I can't come up with something new just by playing, I'll think a lot and be like, well, what's something that I haven't put together, like with my hands and feet and stuff? Like,
yeah.
Well, I could play 4 on my feet and play 7 on my hands and do a paradiddle diddle thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I just like see what I haven't done yet. And so I try to come up with something. And then other than that, I just also play, and I turn on the click and I play. And sometimes I'll come up with something in there and I'll be like, oh, that sounds really dope. I'm going to film that. And then, sometimes it'll just be a groove that feels really good, cool to me. It feels really good. And then, like, I'll throw a lick in there, like, that sounds cool, too, And, like, usually when it's like that, I don't know exactly what I'm going to play, but I have an idea. And, or I could be playing along to music, and I'll be like, oh, a groove to this song sounds pretty dope,
Yeah.
And so that's something that really, like, that's one of the ways that I decide to post a video, is if I'm like, oh, this is really cool, I'm going to post this. And then another way that I can do things is I'll be like, oh, I really want to post a video. Like, I haven't posted a video in a while, and I want to post something, That happens. That's a little bit less common for me. But if I do, I'll just be like, I'll just turn on the camera and I'll film for like 3 to 5 minutes. And then I'll like look at it, and if I don't like it, I'll look at it usually later at the night time or something, or maybe even the next day.
Nice.
I never even look at it right away. But I'll check it out, and if there's something cool in there, I'll post it. If there's nothing cool in there, then I just won't post anything. It's not really like a big deal for me that I have to post or I have a certain day or a certain time. It's really just whenever it feels right.
Right.
I'm a strong believer in just doing something when it feels right, and just, even as something as little as just posting a video. And, I just do it when it feels right, whether it's a big decision or posting a video or anything like that. Whatever feels right is right to me.
That seems to be the recurring theme in your career, which I think it's important, and it's funny and cheesy, but again, it's true, because if it feels right, chances are it's going to work out. And I think too many times, especially with social media, a lot of friends of mine and just fans that I've had that are very interested in, jump starting their career, or I don't know, doing something more with their music stuff. They get so focused on, all right, I got to make sure that my Instagram and my YouTube look great, that I have, a logo figured out, and that I get all the setups right, and I got to make sure I get all the angles right, and now I got to buy, all the mics for my kit, and then I got to make sure I get all the right plugins, and they start to just list things that they have to.
Yeah.
But the reality is, in my opinion, at some point you got to start. A, that's number one. You got to start at some point. But B, it's never going to be determined so much on the gear and all the stuff that you have. I mean, sometimes it can, depending on how professional you want to go. But at the end of the day, if it feels right and it's enjoyable to you, it's going to feel right and be enjoyable to others. And I think that's something that I can't stress enough for anyone that's listening, is that if you spend too much time thinking about the process, thinking about how I'm going to do this, how is it going to look like, it just basically hinders you. You never are actually going to do anything if you constantly sit there and just start thinking about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like, if you watch my first videos, they were done on my parents' phone because my phone, I couldn't post Instagram videos on. It was like I just did it on a cell phone. And really and the only reason I started posting on a video is because a good friend of mine, Sean Lyman, was working for Zildjian. And he was like, yeah, we're doing like these I forget, it was just these My Zildjian posts, I think.
Yeah. And
he was like, yeah, you should try, he's like, you should try filming with a GoPro. A lot of our dudes do that. And I had told him I had a GoPro, and I did it, and I figured out how to post from the GoPro. And so I did that. I started doing that. And then I got endorsed by GoPro, which we could talk about in a minute, or if you want to, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I got endorsed with them, and so I just kept using GoPros, and it's the easiest thing next to a cell phone. And for me, it's actually easier than just filming on a cell phone, because I like to hear what I'm doing, and sometimes the cell phones can get all messed up and like you can't really hear.
Yeah.
And so it's really just, I just do it as easy as possible and as low, I want to make it sound nice, of course, but that's not my top priority. I just want to be able to, if you can tell what I'm doing, that's cool to me. And if you can nod your head to it and it doesn't just sound like a ball of mush, then that's good. That's good enough for me.
There is a limit for sure. Like if you can't even hear what you're doing, then obviously maybe try and do it again. But yeah, I think as long as I can hear what you're doing or what you're trying to get across, then yeah, it's more than enough.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how I feel about it. And it's just really just try to take the simplest approach possible, because to me, it's more focused on the playing than the video itself. Because, and some people would disagree, and that's totally cool. Everyone has different approaches. But for me, I want to spend all my time playing drums and as little time focusing on posting a video as I can,
Yeah.
And really, that's how my approach is to that.
Which is the best approach, in my opinion. Tell me a little bit about the GoPro endorsement. How did that come to be? I'm assuming they saw you using their cameras, but did you approach them? Did they approach you, or how did that come to be?
So I gotta give a shout out to the NAMM convention for this one, because I was at the NAMM convention. And I became friends with Michael Hannon from GoPro, who works for GoPro, and he's a great dude. And yeah, we just kind of became like friends. We started talking and stuff. And then I didn't really talk to him at all, but he knew who I was. He had seen my videos. And I think when I met him, I wasn't even using a GoPro to film yet.
Really?
I had met him a couple years, and I was just like, oh, that's dope. You work for GoPro. And it was my first NAMM convention when I met him. And I was like, yeah, I love GoPros. And he was just really nice. And then the next year, I had been using my GoPro, and we'd been talking a lot and at NAMM. And then this kid who I'm now good friends with, John Tesson, he's a killer drummer from Orange County as well.
Nice.
And he actually ran up to me. I didn't know who he was, but he was a fan of my videos, and he asked me what I used to film. And I happened to be standing next to Michael from GoPro, and the kid didn't even know that Michael worked for GoPro. And John, it was kind of funny. He just was like, dude, I'm a big fan of your videos. What do you post your stuff with? And I was like, oh, I just use a GoPro. And it's really simple. And then I just explained to him how I did it. And he was like, dope, I'm gonna go buy one tonight. And I was like, oh, that's dope, like go do that. And then
he looks at you, he's like, do you want an endorsement?
basically he's like, wow, that's really dope. And then he like got a bunch of mounts and stuff together, and then like got a camera together and got it all set up for me, and he's like, this is all I can give you right now. And I was like, this is all you can give me? Like, that's so, like, that's killer. Like, and I was like so stoked. And then he was like, contact me with whatever you need, and we'll get it to you and stuff. And like a month later, I had a huge box of GoPro stuff, and then like another 2 months later, I had another huge box. Like, it was just like crazy how quick it happened. And it was never really something that we thought too much about. Again, like, it was just kind of like, he was just like, you know what, here you go, you know. And he was just being really cool, and he was like, I really support what you do, and I want to keep helping you do it, and you know, and we'll get you a better camera that sounds even better, and it's just as easy for you. So like, you know, I was using the older cameras because it was what I had, and then he got me some newer cameras that sounded even better, and it was like, yeah, man, it just became a really killer relationship, and that was my first endorsement ever. So
wow, that and GoPro isn't that easy to get, you know, not just anybody can get a GoPro endorsement, and that was the first one that you got. Which is crazy because I feel like you actually gave him physical evidence that an endorsement to you would mean sales for the company. I mean, he literally witnessed it in front of him, which is funny and cool at the same time. I have never heard a story like that, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's a really crazy, like, it's not how I expected, because honestly, I didn't even know that GoPro gave endorsements, to tell you the truth. I thought it was just like they were just there trying to sell some stuff, and that's I was like, eventually I'm going to buy a GoPro, and I honestly thought that. I didn't think anything other than that one day I was going to buy another GoPro. And it was just, we just became friends because he was such a cool dude. We were into a lot of the same music, and we just talked a lot, and yeah, it's just a really natural relationship.
I'm happy for you. It just seems like it was working out for you, and that it worked out because you were just being you. Honestly, just everything works out for you because you're true to yourself, dude. That's the proof.
It's really it's an important thing. Just be you, and stuff comes.
So for someone who's, let's say a drummer is trying to start, right, and they have a GoPro or maybe just their phone, but let's assume they have a GoPro. Just real quickly, walk me through your process. I know you said that you kind of just sit there and just mess around until you figure out an idea that you want to play. But let's assume that you already figured out something that you liked. Let's say that you played this groove and you're like, all right, I'm going to post this one tonight. What's the process? Do you just export it straight off from the camera and then put it into your phone or your laptop, or what's the process from there?
So once I get it filmed, I just set up my camera and whatever, and I usually tilt it sideways because I like the way that looks.
Nice. And
I'll just have it kind of at a weird angle. That's just a weird thing that I do just because I like the way it looks. I don't think anyone even notices, but I like the way it looks. But I do that. I film it, and I have to now. I used to be able to do it from my phone, but I got an iPhone, and you can't put the I got myself an iPhone, and you can't put the SD card in the back because you can't take the back off.
Yeah, you can't.
Like you can on the Android. There's two ways to do it, and the way I do it, just because it's easier, if my mom's home, I put it in the back of her phone because she has an Android.
Yeah.
And you know, you can just put the SD card in the back of that, and that's like super simple. And really, I just put it on there. I don't do any editing. I go onto Instagram. I pick like 20 seconds that I like, and then I post it. And I usually don't know what to say, so I'll just be like, just playing or something like that. I just write something just so I can write something, you know, just because I don't want to just leave it blank. Because that'd be boring for me if I was looking at someone else that just left their account blank, you know?
Yeah.
So I do how I would want to see it. And I don't do too many hashtags. Like, I do like as many as I would want to see on someone's account. You know, that's really how I do it. I've always done what I wanted to see other people do. And I'll do that. And the other way to do it is you can go and you can get an SD card reader and put it on your computer. And I've done this a couple of times. You put it on your computer and you email it to yourself, and you can get it on your phone, and then just download the video, and it'll pop up in your photos in your gallery and stuff, and then you can just post it from there. So those are two different ways to do it. And then once it's on my phone, I pretty much have the same approach where I just write something short so I can write something, and then I put some hashtags and I post it. I mostly hashtag my companies that I endorse.
Right, as you should.
Yeah, and I'll hashtag that, and then...
Which are the other companies that endorse you?
So I'll read these to you. I have GoPro cameras, Vic Firth drumsticks, Zildjian cymbals, fusion bags, K brakes, kick strap, knockout beaters, and destroy a drum closed.
Nice.
So yeah,
It's a good 8 right there, right? Or 7.
yeah, 8. Yeah.
And it all started with GoPro, man. Look at that. You're up to 8.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, man, and it really just happened from like that, just getting to know people and stuff, and if I like a company, then I'm like all my companies like Vic Firth, Zildjian, I've been playing those my entire life. I've never played anything else, and so it was kind of just something that I was like, even if I don't get anything from them, I'm not gonna stop buying their stuff.
Yeah.
And I approached a good friend of mine, Connor Dennis, put me in contact with Vic Firth, with Ben over at Vic Firth, who's great. And if he would have said, "Oh, I can't help you out at all," I would have totally understood and just kept buying drumsticks. But he was super nice, and he totally hooked it up, and then with Zildjian, it was kind of a funny way like to get in contact with them. Is Kirsten over at Zildjian? She contacted my dad and said, "Hey, I want to surprise Tosh with some cymbals because I noticed all his cymbals are broken in his videos." We had met at NAMM that year, and she was super cool. We just kind of became friends like that, and she's really awesome. But yeah, so she surprised me with cymbals, which was great. It was like crazy for me. Like I was so surprised. I was in shock because I didn't think that would ever happen, honestly. And then when it happened, I was like, that's like crazy. And then since then, she's been awesome and helps me out whenever I need cymbals and if anything's broken, and so she's just great to work with. And yeah, so it's just like I've been playing these companies, and that's something I really strongly encourage to anyone. Like, don't endorse a company just because they're going to give you free stuff or a deal or whatever the offer is, or don't just do it because of that. Play something you actually like, because that's like I was like, I was just like, everyone goes through that where they're like, I just really want an endorsement. And I was like, man, I really want an endorsement. And I was like thinking about it, and I was like, man, but I can't do anything I don't like. And I was like, what's the point if I don't like it?
Exactly.
And so I just was like, I'm just going to keep, I'll buy cymbals. And then my cymbals were totally broken, and I was like, I don't care. It's still dope. Like, they're still Zildjian, which is cool. I like seeing that Zildjian logo. So
yeah. You're absolutely right when it comes to endorsements. I think there's so many musicians out there that want that. It feels good when someone likes you enough to want to endorse you. But at the same time, if you don't like their product, it's almost like being in a relationship. I mean, I don't mean to compare it to that, but I mean, if you don't like the person, it's not going to last very long. You know what I mean? And so if you don't like the product, you're not going to use it for very long. That's just a simple fact.
Yeah, exactly. You take your free gear and then get on with your life, it seems like, Which isn't something I wanted to do. I like building relationships with these companies because it's like, they're great. Like, I want to be with a company that I like the people at, I like the gear. Like, it's got to just all be like that. And if I don't, then I just won't have an endorsement, I guess,
Yeah. Good for you, man. Seriously, good for you, because that's a fantastic way to think about products and just your career in general. Because it's if you are constantly worried about, getting free stuff, then you're never going to fully reach your potential. But because you are focused on, I'm just going to play what I play. I'm going to get the product I like because I like it. No other reason other than that. That is definitely a recipe for success, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, you got to just be you and do what you like,
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I think I learned a lot from you. I mean, you're only 16 and you're already doing amazing things with your career. You're playing with Nick West. You're endorsed by companies. You're constantly putting out great videos and being true to yourself. And you're homeschooled. So that means that you basically have everything you've ever wanted, which is so cool. What else is next for your career? Obviously, you're still playing with Nick West. Is there anything else that you've got, planned for this next year or maybe the following year?
I got a lot of different stuff in the works and stuff, and basically my plan is just to keep playing drums and keep doing what I do. And of course I love playing for Nick, so I'm going to keep doing that. And I love working and stuff. So if I'm ever off, I would love to play with any other people and stuff, and I do, and I try to keep doing that. So it's really just like I love working. So anything that I can do. I teach as well. I give lessons if anyone, wants lessons and stuff. I'm totally open to it. And I give lessons over Skype as well as in person at my home studio. And yeah, man. So I'm gonna keep doing what I do, and of course, I'll keep posting videos just because I like it, and I love posting videos. It's fun for me, and it's really cool to watch myself play and be like, oh man, I thought that sounded really dope, and that does not sound very dope. But so it's like that's fun for me. So I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep doing what I do. I have some other projects that I do. I have a band called Murderous Rhythm that we're working on an album right now. Me and my good friend Jose and my other friend Gus. And but we all play for people as well. So it's like it's getting done, but it'll be done hopefully by the end of this year.
Nice. What's the genre?
It's a mix of a lot of different stuff. Like we're all influenced by hard funk and stuff like that. But we're also we love rock. We love reggae. We love a lot of different stuff. So it's just kind of like a mix of everything we like to do thrown together.
Yeah.
And really that's what our whole thing is, and we just kind of do what we do. And so I have that hopefully coming out soon. I have another band called OC Ska Kids that has an EP that's out, and we're already working on another one, I guess. So yeah. The EP is called Episode 1 by OC Ska Kids. So it's just I have a lot of other fun projects that I do. I play for a couple of people and stuff, and and I'm just gonna keep doing that, and I want to keep playing for more people. If anyone ever needs drums, don't be afraid to ask, because even though I tour, I'm still totally open to working whenever I'm not on the road with Nick. And
what would be the best way to get a hold of you? Is it just through Instagram, or is it through your email, or is there any other specific way?
So I have my email is toshdrums@gmail.com, which if you contact me on Instagram at @Tosh_the Drummer, I'll probably just tell you to email me, toshdrums@gmail.com. But, if you want to just direct message me on Instagram, that's totally fine too. It's really just whatever, whatever. Like, however you want to get a hold of me, I'm okay with that. I'm on Facebook, just Tosh Peterson. However you want to get a hold of me is totally okay with me,
Super cool, man. You're doing amazing things. I don't even know what else to say, because I feel like you've got it figured out, and you're just going to keep on getting better because that's who you are. You just like doing what you do. You like challenging yourself, and you welcome challenges with open arms. And honestly, I couldn't be any prouder or any more amazed at what you've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. So I'm honestly looking forward to seeing how far you can go, because the truth is the sky's the limit for you. It's the same for almost anybody. As long as you're willing to accept who you are, accept challenges with open arms, and just keep on pushing forward, then the sky really is the limit. And so I'm excited for you, man.
Oh, dude, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Tosh. I know I definitely did. One thing that really stuck out to me is how much Tosh knows what he likes, and he doesn't question it. And I think that's very important for any kind of artist at any point of their career. We're always going to come to forks in the road where we have to make decisions. And I think sometimes the best decisions are the ones that are backed up with our uniqueness, with what we like. And as long as you always follow yourself, your true self, what you like to do, no matter where you go, no matter what you choose to do with your career, you're going to end up being happy because you're going after what you like. So never question that. Never question what you like. Never question what feels right to you. It may be different from everybody else, but that's the beauty of being human, is that you're different. So always stick by what you like, and I guarantee you, you will always see success. So if you've liked what you've heard on these episodes, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode. Don't stop tuning in. I've got lots of great content coming your way.